Well, good evening. Thanks for the invitation to be here as part of the CU Speaks program. My name is Dan Mann. I'm the Associate Provost for Enrollment Management at the University of Illinois. And my topic tonight is to talk a little bit about the Illinois Commitment Program. Before I do that, I will share our enrollment numbers that we just announced a couple weeks ago from fall 2019. This is Meet the Class of 2023, which is our new freshman class. It's the biggest class we've ever had, 7,665 students. We had record number of admissions applications of 43,509. Our new freshman is the most diverse class we've ever had, with 23.2% of our students being from underrepresented backgrounds. 24.7% of our students are first-generation students, meaning that their parents did not graduate from college. They're smart. Their average SAT score is 1348, and their average ACT score is 29. When we made our announcement, this is our freshman class, but you also saw that we had record number of students. This is the first time the university has ever gone over 50,000 for total enrollment. We had 51,196. Most of the growth that came this year really came at the graduate level with some of our online graduate programs. But we think that the topic I'm here to talk about tonight, which is the Illinois Commitment Program, was a large part of the reason why we had an increase in numbers this year. So if we go back a year ago or a couple years ago as we were planning out this program, here's some of the background and motivation about why we created this program. So this slide provides information on what it costs to go to the University of Illinois. This is our 2019-20 estimated cost of attendance. When we talk about cost of attendance, we're talking about tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, and other expenses. And other expenses is like transportation. It includes money for toothpaste, those kinds of things. So you can see that the total cost for an in-state Illinois resident is $31,390 at our base rate. And then students who are in our engineering business, our largest differential group is $36,394. At the non-resident rates, they go from about $49,000 to about $54,000. This slide provides information on unmet need. So unmet need is the amount of money that is remaining for those students who are undergraduates who fill out a free application for federal student aid, which is the federal financial aid form. We subtract off what their families expected to contribute towards the cost of their education, and we subtract off the aid that they are actually receiving. So we have about $125 million of unmet need, money that students show on their financial aid applications as being eligible to receive, but there isn't money at the federal, state, or institutional level to help fund that money. So that number continues to grow. It's almost doubled over the last 10 years. And so that is a concern for why students may not be able to afford to come here that we wanted to try to address with this program. We also know in looking at the data from the FAFSA applications on students who apply that their income and financial background vary significantly by race and ethnicity. And you can see here by Native American, Asian American, African American, Hispanic, multiracial, Native Hawaiian, and white students about which quintile of income students fall into. So you can see that African American and Hispanic or Latinx students tend to come from lower income families and need more help financially to be here. So the quintiles are really based upon the state of Illinois quintiles. So the lowest quintile, the bottom 20%, have a family income of 0 to 40,001. Quintile 2, 40,002 to 69,290, all the way up to quintile 5, which is over $160,000, almost $161,000. What that means is that the top 20% of incomes in the state of Illinois exceed $161,000. Also in our conversations and our thinking, we really were concerned about student debt. We know that this is a big concern for many families. You can actually see that our rates, the blue line represents the amount of student loan indebtedness. These are loans that the student takes out. The orange line represents the amount that the students and parents take out. So for dependent undergraduate students, the parents can borrow a loan to help pay for education. So you can see that we are concerned that the cost of borrowing is increasing on this campus. It should be said, though, that we are below the national averages. The national average for student loans is right around $29,000. So we are below the national and the state levels. So in kind of reviewing the motivation and the goals for our new program, we wanted to improve access for low and moderate income students. We wanted to provide additional need-based support for students. We wanted to make sure it wasn't loans or work. We really wanted to give grant or free money to students. We wanted to help first generation and low and moderate income students more easily understand financial aid. For those who have not filled out a financial aid application, it's got about 100 questions on the financial aid application, and many families find that confusing. There's words like expected family contribution and a lot of words that comes out as a result of that. We really wanted to make the concept of financial aid really simple. If you fell within these criteria, we're going to pay for your tuition fee. So we wanted a very simplified message. We wanted to mitigate persistence and retention issues related to money. In other words, we didn't want to bring students here and then them drop out because they couldn't afford to continue to be here. And one of our longer term goals is to continue to improve diversity on campus. And so we created a new financial aid program and named it Illinois Commitment. We did some user testing about this name. We looked at several different names, and this was a name that registered with students and parents. After we explained what the program was, it really was a belief that we were trying to address affordability with this name. And so that was important to us to make sure we were communicating our intent with our audience. It's a tuition fee program. It was for students with family income below the Illinois median income, and we promised to sufficient grant aid to cover tuition and fees. So we were really trying to make it a very simple message. More of the details, the median family income last year in the state of Illinois was $61,000. So that's why that number was picked. So eligible students would be students and parents who were from the state of Illinois, whose family income was $61,000 or below. They had less than $50,000 in assets. When we're looking at assets, we're not counting the family home. We're not counting cars. What we're really looking at is investments, stocks, those kinds of things. It was really designed to begin with students in fall 2019 or later semesters. And the guarantee or the commitment is that we would provide up to 4 years or 8 semesters of institutional funds to fill the gap to cover tuition and campus fees for students. But we also included transfer students in this. So if you come in as a new transfer student, we would provide up to 3 years or 6 semesters for a transfer student. We did make a rule that Pell and MAP, so Federal Pell Grant is the Federal Pell Grant Award, $6,195 if you got maximum eligibility. And the State MAP Grant, which is $5,340, would count towards meeting your tuition fees, and then we would go in and fill in whatever's left after those two things. But if the university or one of the college's departments gave you a merit scholarship, we weren't going to count that towards meeting the goal for tuition fees. So that money could be used for other things. That kind of summarizes again about Pell plus MAP plus UIUC institutional money would cover your tuition and fees. Merit-based scholarships and outside scholarships. So an outside scholarship is something that the student would bring with them. It may be something from their high school. It could be from the Elks Club. It could be from the Miss America pageant. Those kind of scholarships that the student brings would not count towards that. Those awards could be used for additional expenses such as the room and board, books and supplies, and the other expenses that we mentioned earlier. We did, of course, put in some limits. The student's total amount of grants and scholarships cannot exceed the amount of financial need or reduction. Those are kind of federal rules that we have to live by. In addition, you can't receive more free money than what we say it costs to go to school here for a year. So in other words, you can't make money. If you bring in enough stuff from the outside, we would reduce to cap it off at that total cost of attendance amount. So prior to Illinois commitment, this has got a lot of stuff on here, but this is really a chart to kind of show you what a sample financial aid package might look at. So these are approximate family incomes of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, and $100,000. And so the orange lines here are really how much a typical family of four with one in college would show that that's how much the family should contribute based upon their FAFSA information. The kind of gray unmet need is the amount that wasn't being covered that we talked about continues to grow on this campus. The yellow is kind of the amount of loan and work study that we would award the student. And then the blue category is how much gift aid or free money, need-based aid that the students would get. And so obviously our financial aid awarding policy is geared towards low-income students. The lower your income, the more grant money, free money we're going to give you. So you can see that someone in a $30,000 category is going to receive $18,200 in grant money. So this is before Illinois commitment. This is what happens with Illinois commitment. You see that there's growth to cover tuition fees in the 40, 50, and 60,000 income. So that's who really saw the biggest increase in funds. So going back and looking at it before and then after. Now you will notice that it really doesn't impact people above 61,000. So the 70,000, 80,000, 90,000, 100,000 packages all still stay the same. So prior to this program being announced, the campus was putting about $90 million a year into the financial aid programs. With Illinois commitment, this number is going to grow to more than $110 million. We are prepared to cover that institutionally, but we're also trying to do fundraising to cover a lot of that money. And our hope is that more of the financial aid funds can be covered through fundraising for this program and other financial aid programs. One of the things that we had a lot of questions about is this a new program that's replacing your previous financial aid programs, or is this in addition to your programs? And it is in addition to our programs. This is new additional money, but we would continue to award Illinois Promise, President's Award Program, Chancellor's Access Grant, tuition grants, scholarships administered by colleges, just like we had before. This is additional money on top of what we were already doing. For us, we think it's a game changer, providing more access to low and middle income students, helping families understand that significant financial support is available. So sometimes they see our price tag and think we can't. If you look at a family who's maybe got $30,000 a year and they see that our costs were $31,000, they probably think, I can't even possibly think about going there or afford to go there. So we're trying to help people understand that there is financial aid there to help. We want to signal to the state and our government, our elected officials, that we are committed to serving our students. And we also wanted to signal to alums, industry, and the state that we are making a major difference and that we need their support too. So we're hoping that that will help with our fundraising message. So we try to make the message fairly simple: a commitment to cover tuition fees for students with incomes below $61,000 per year. Additional messaging that we did was we are committed to access, we are committed to affordability, and we are committed to student success. So Chancellor Jones publicly announced Illinois commitment in August of 2018, so kind of at the beginning of our admissions cycle for the fall 2019 year. We received considerable media coverage. Our announcement went viral on social media. I didn't really know what going viral meant until I was told that means you're kind of out of control of the messaging once that happens. And that happened for us, which was a good thing. We hit social media very hard. We also did a lot of stuff about contacting our normal networks of working with high school guidance counselors, prospective students, all the things we would normally do to recruit students so let them know. But we did something different with this than what we've done with other financial aid programs in the past. We really did a marketing and media campaign. We wanted to make sure that everyone in the state was aware of this program. So we went over and beyond what we would normally do. We worked with Illinois Athletics to make sure it was covered during home Chicago games, web, yearbook, Coach Smith video. I think anyone who went to the ball games knew that there was the Illinois Commitment camera that they were doing through the crowds. We did paid social media on Facebook and Instagram. We bought billboards throughout the state. We had 17 billboards, including 2 here in the Champaign-Urbana area. We advertised heavily in Chicago Mass Transit, on bus shelters, train platforms, digital panels. We also advertised here in Champaign-Urbana with the MTD buses. We also did theater ads 4 weeks in November and December. What we did in our market research is found that low-income families' primary choice of entertainment is to go to the movies. And so we thought we were trying to hit the group we were targeting at the place they go. I think in the end we maybe didn't find that we were so successful with the theater ads, but we do think we moved the needle on people thinking that the University of Illinois is now more affordable. The Go of the Media campaign was to drive students to our webpage where they could learn more details on the program. And our main message was 4 years, free tuition. Message meant to simplify the concept of financial aid. And then we also had details about the details of the program. And so you can just see a little bit. Here's the billboards, some of the stuff with the MTD platforms. So more support will be needed other than just bringing students here. That was one of the things we talked about from the very beginning of this program, is we bring in more moderate income students to campus, more first generation students. They probably are going to need more support. So it's incumbent upon the campus as a whole to make sure that we help these students be successful, both with retention, completion, and time to degree. And we want to expand and coordinate student support for these students. So we want to not just bring students here, we want to make sure that they are successful and they graduate. The first incoming class began fall 2019. It will be implemented one class at a time over 4 years. That's a very typical way that we bring on new financial aid programs. It will be evaluated over a very long period of time. If you remember back to the earlier goals, we talked about we want to reduce student debt for this group. And so you won't really know that until they get to the end and graduate. Were you able to actually reduce debt? So we'll really be looking at both short-term and long-term goals. As I said before, our marketing research indicated that people believe the university is more affordable as a result of our marketing campaign. And we generally thought that the marketing message, keeping it simple, was generally a good strategy. Most people were able to look and say, yeah, my family income is below $61,000, and so that was a good thing. The simplicity of the message may have also backfired a little bit, that students saw that they were eligible, thought they were coming to the University of Illinois, but they also had to be admitted. And so they didn't understand that you also needed, some students didn't understand you also need to be admitted to go to school here. So we have a little bit of preliminary analysis about how the program actually done now that we've released our 10th day numbers. Illinois Commitment has helped us drive the record number of admissions applications as well as the quality, size, and diversity of our record-breaking freshman class. 31.4% of our new resident students, and that's new residents, new freshmen and new transfer students, met the Illinois Commitment eligibility requirements. So that is good. Almost 1 in 3 of our new students met the requirements of this program. This exceeded our initial count projections by 7.5%, but it did not necessarily exceed our budget projections because at the same time there was increases in MAP and Pell Grant award amounts that we weren't necessarily expecting. If we hadn't had those MAP and Pell Grant, then we'd be a little bit concerned if this program brought in 7.5% more of expenses than what we were projecting. We were maybe a little bit surprised with the 5th line on here. There's a 44% increase in the number of Illinois Promise students. So for Illinois Commitment, anyone who's less than 61,000 qualified. But we've already had an existing program since 2005 that we called Illinois Promise, which provided a much better financial aid package for students who were at or below the federal poverty level. So the federal poverty level for a family of four is around $25,000. So we thought since that program had been in existence for 14 years, 15 years now, that we wouldn't see as much growth in that program because people already knew about that. But we did see a growth in that as well as a growth in that above the federal poverty level to the 61,000, which is where we thought we'd maybe see a little bit more growth. So we believe it played a role in our 10.9% increase in admissions applications from Illinois residents, as well as our 18% increase in students from Central and Southern Illinois. So we did see students coming from downstate Illinois, roughly defined as south of I-80, that had not necessarily been coming here before. So we thought that was a very positive thing as well. Maybe kind of in ending the presentation, we've gone out to our students and just said, are you willing to share your stories with us? We're interested in both having them for our websites, but also to work with our donor community. And some of the stuff that students have told us is Illinois commitment allows me to strive for higher education without the weight of financial burden. A year ago, I was unsure whether or not I would even be able to attend a four-year university, let alone UIUC. Illinois has been my dream school for as long as I can remember, and with Illinois commitment, I'm able to chase my dreams as a first-generation student. An affordable and quality education allows me to shape my own future despite my social-economic background. Another student told us the support from the Illinois commitment means everything to me, seeing as without it, there was a great possibility that I would not have been able to attend one of the top universities in the country. I am from a small town that was not the wealthiest, to say the least, and given the opportunity, I will put my small town on the map. A couple more. When I got a notice that I had received Illinois commitment, I almost cried. Before then, I had been so excited to attend college and further my education, but I was terrified of the debt I would incur. I had received 3 scholarships at the end of my senior year, but that would barely cover the cost of my room and board for a year. With Illinois commitment, I don't have to worry about spending the rest of my life in debt, and I can pursue a career that I truly enjoy rather than one that will pay enough to cover the cost of student loans. So that suggests that maybe the student can study something that they didn't necessarily think they wanted to study or could afford to study. Follow their heart and their passion instead of just going for a career that's going to give them more money. The last one, I got to come home after going to an out-of-state school. If it weren't for Illinois commitment, there would have been a good chance I would not have been able to come home. Transferring has helped motivate me to do better, and being in the University of Illinois environment itself has inspired me. From the professors to the way classes were set up to the amazing advisors, I could not be more thankful I was able to come home. So those kind of stories from our students is very heartening to us. It tells us we're doing the right things. We know with our heads that this is the right kind of program that we should be offering to our students and families here in Illinois, but it also really tugs at our heart when we know that we're helping students who probably wouldn't be able to come to school here because of this program. And that concludes my presentation.
So I got a question. So on average, each student will get the aid for around $18,000 a semester. Is that right?
So that was the base rate amount. The
Base rate
$16,000 in 16,004 was the base rate amount.
6,000.
So students who
And that's
are
per
in,
semester or per year?
that's per year.
Per year.
That's
okay.
per year. So someone who's in business, engineering, our highest differential category, that number would be 21,008.
And then there will still be money coming from the federal level or the state level for the ads probably around 5,000, 6,000 if they get qualified.
So the Pell and the MAP. So the Pell
Right.
is federal money that is counting towards meeting this need, and the MAP is
So that's
state
part
money.
of it.
But the student still has expenses for room and board. They
Right.
still need to buy their books and supplies. They have their personal miscellaneous expenses. So there would still be the other federal and state programs that could help with that. But those are often student loans, like the direct loan programs. It could be federal work study. It could be working on campus to help meet those other expenses. So this program doesn't cover all the expenses. It just covers tuition fees. And as we were developing this program, tuition fees is about 51 to 59%, depending where you are at in terms of which program you're in, of the total cost of attendance for a student. So it's covering slightly more than half with free money. Yes?
When you talk about unmet aid, does that also include loans and such that were actively denied from your student account, that you denied yourself?
It does include those in the end, yes. But it does, if the student accepted their loans, then it's not included in the unmet need figure. It doesn't count the parent loans, it's just the student piece of that.
So for the first year, it started with about $20 million for this program?
So the additional cost for the university was forecast to be between $4 and $5 million the first year. Because we were already meeting, these students were already getting aid before then. It was additional to fill the gap to cover the rest of tuition fees. So students were getting a lot more than $4 to $5 million, but it took an additional $4 to $5 million to cover tuition fees for everyone who had a family income less than $61,000 from Illinois.
I see. And then originally these money or these funding are coming from the university?
Coming from the university.
Got you, and they allocate that.
Yes.
So in the future, if they want to continue to grow sustainably, what's the...
So over 4 years, it's about $20 million extra dollars that has been added to the financial aid budget line to support this program.
I see.
And that's $5 million each year. Over 4 years is how we get to that $20 million.
I see.
So the first year we only have freshman class. For 2020, we will have the fall 2020 new freshmen and new students, as well as the sophomores who were freshmen this year. The next year after that, we'll bring in another class, and it'll be covering freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and then in 4 years, it'll be covering all undergrad students.
And the goal, it seems to me from your presentation, the long-term goal is overall increase the enrollment of the university.
Not necessarily. It's to improve affordability for students. It may be changing who's coming to the university, because we may have students who previously didn't think they could afford to come here, who are just as academically talented, but may felt like financially they couldn't afford to come here. But it's not really designed right now to grow, or only marginal growth if there is growth. It wasn't really designed to bring in additional students at this point.
What?
So you're saying with transfer students, they were able to use this as well. When it comes to, you said for the first year it's only the freshmen, and then the second year sophomores, and then third year's juniors. Would we have to wait till the third year because they're a transfer student, say from like a junior college?
So new transfer students are here right now, and the reason we gave them 3 years or 6 semesters, not everyone who transfers here completes their community college degree. We have about a third of our students who transfer here who actually transfer from another school, maybe a 4-year school or maybe a private school. So not everyone who transfers here comes in as a community college graduate who's got at least 60 hours of credit. And so we wanted to make sure that those people who came before they got their associate's degree would have enough money to finish their degree here.
Would they be considered freshmen, or they can be considered?
Could be sophomores or juniors. So it's new freshmen and new transfer students, and whatever their classification might be. It's students who began in fall 2019 and thereafter.
So this is not a test or a pilot program, this is on, right?
This is a permanent addition to the financial aid program at the University of Illinois.
Does it extend to the rest of the University of Illinois group, or is it just at Urbana?
It's just at Urbana-Champaign. So one of the things that we did was create an email listserv that anyone could send in questions. Once we announced the program, we've had thousands of questions that's come in. And one of the big questions was, if I go to University of Illinois Chicago or UIS, and in some cases it was even Illinois State, SIU Carbondale, do I get this? And it's like, no, it's only at this campus. I think other campuses would like to do this, but you got to have institutional funds to do this. It's not a cheap program. And we wouldn't be able to do it if we weren't already putting $90 million into aid and already covering a big piece of this for students.
Well, and part of it is like you're trying to get alumni donations, all that stuff to work towards this too. So
Correct.
Say an alumni, if they do make a large donation, can they choose, say, I want this to go to Illinois Commitment, for instance?
Yes, that's one of the options that's now on the fundraising page, that Illinois Commitment is an option if you want to give money to the university. And we've had some success with fundraising, but we haven't had that huge donor step up yet that can make a huge difference.
What's the most challenging part?
What's the most challenging part?
For you guys?
It's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I think, so the financial aid part of this actually happens in the financial aid office, but the admissions part happens separately from this. And so right now, because financial aid is not a factor in our admissions decision, admissions people don't even know this. We know who got admitted, financial aid knows who they've been giving money to, but trying to figure out what the statistics are and preliminary results is a little bit hard to say, tell us a lot about this population, because we're still trying to put those files together and look at that. It's been one of the stuff. I would say the other thing has been, there's been lots of questions about this. It's maybe the downside of having a simplified message. We think that there was many positive sides about having a simplified message, but what does $50,000 in assets mean? Was a common question. We got a lot of questions. The university has a nursing program that the students are really UIC students, but they can take classes down here. And those students want to know, do I get that even though my normal financial aid package comes from UIC? That question was no. We had a lot of questions from international students and undocumented students about if they would qualify for this program, and right now they do not. International students by design wouldn't, but undocumented students are not eligible at this point. But just a lot of trying to understand the financial aid form. We also got a lot of questions like, my family made $61,015. Does that work? Or I've got 6 in my family, so if 61,000 is kind of a common for a family of 4, shouldn't my number be higher? And unfortunately, 61,000 applies to everybody. So a lot of questions about that. People trying to make themselves eligible or trying to make sure. We also had lots of questions, but this happens with the normal financial aid process about if my family or my parents are divorced, whose information do I need to provide on there? Do I need to provide both the father and the mother? And just trying to understand the financial aid process and trying to figure out if people were eligible. So
if you're part of the Parkland Pathways program, since you are taking classes at the U of I as well, would you be considered a junior when you do transfer, or would you be considered a first-year transfer student?
likely you would be a junior.
There was some stuff in the news about like people trying to game a system or something. Were they talking about this, or was that a different student loan or student program?
So that was about guardianships. And so it is not this exactly, but it's related. Families were going through a legal process to have their often junior or senior in high school become a guardian of someone else, or someone else become a guardian of their child, so that there is laws, or the financial aid process says that if you're in a guardianship, only the student's information counts. They're kind of treated as an independent student, and the parent's information doesn't have to be provided. So it's connected only in that this program is determined based upon the information on the FAFSA. That guardianship issue is completely separate from this, but trying to make sure that students who maybe are coming from wealthy families, and families are doing this to bypass or try to get an improved financial aid package, trying to make sure that they weren't getting this because they were doing something to try to beat the system.
But that was a statewide thing happening or all over, or countrywide thing. It wasn't just for this.
So far, it has primarily been found in the Chicago area, largely in the Lake County area. Although there's been a few cases that's been identified in McHenry and Cook County, but largely Lake County. But I think a lot of financial aid directors and enrollment managers and others have gone back to look, is this happening in other parts of the country, and we just haven't been paying attention to it. Because there's very legitimate reasons why families get into guardianship relationships. Often it happens at a very young age. Maybe parent is killed, or someone's institutionalized or goes to prison, and they want to make sure that their child is cared. And so those are very legitimate guardianships, and we want to make sure that those students are not disadvantaged by this. But it's really looking for those who may be doing what might be legal because a judge and a court has approved these things, but doesn't seem to match the spirit of what financial aid programs are there to help with.
Do we have data around Champaign-Urbana that apply for the program? The percentage or the...
We don't have that yet. We will have at the end of the year, knowing where they're at. But as I said, we really believe there's a huge increase in downstate. So, and that includes in the local area. But that will be this time next year. We'll have that kind of information about where do they all come from. And part of the reason we're not able to provide is students, even though students are now registered and are in classes and enrolled, and we've got our official counts about who's there, students can still file for financial aid. Some of them are still completing the process. So we want to make sure we get everyone counted and know who's fully in there, and that really happens at the end of the year. Hey, thanks.